Hey, good evening, good evening. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Pro Wrestling Talk video brought to you by Blitzball Champ Gaming here on the U to the Tube. I'm your host, Blitzball Champ Jason Ingram. So, just finished watching AEW Revolution pay-per-view for the year 2023 and wanted to get on here and give my review on it. Definitely great show for the first AEW pay-per-view of 2023. So, before we get started, I want to remind everybody to be sure to click on the link in the description for Game Beauty for an awesome lineup of video game themed makeup and cosmetic products. And if you see something you like and want to make a purchase, be sure to use the promo code BlitzballChamp, all in caps, and you can get 10% off of your order. So be sure to put that promo code to use if you do make a purchase. So check it out. Okay, so AEW Revolution 2023 pay-per-view. Definitely a show that I enjoy, and not bad for the first AEW pay-per-view of the year 2023. This one took place at the Chase Center in San Francisco, California. And yeah, we ended up having 9 matches total with 1 pre-show match. So 8 main card matches, 1 pre-show match. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, shall we? So the pre-show match was a tag team match, a trios match. We had the team of Mark Briscoe and the Lucha Brothers taking on the team of Daivari and the Varsity Athletes, of course, Tony Nese and Josh Woods. This was a pretty decent match for the pre-show, which the pre-show was called 0 Hour. But overall, this was a pretty decent match. I mean, you got a lot of action from all 6 wrestlers. Definitely really liked the chemistry with the Lucha Brothers and Mark Briscoe. I felt like they fit together really nicely. But at the same time, so did the Varsity Athletes and Daivari. So I felt like this was definitely a good match overall. And, you know, it was pretty back and forth. It was definitely back and forth. Smart Mark Sterling tried to get involved a few times, which doesn't surprise me. But overall, Mark Briscoe was able to seal the victory for him and the Lucha Bros after hitting Daivari with a froggy bow and covering him for the 1-2-3. But, of course, after the match, Smart Mark Sterling still ended up paying for his interference anyway, as he ended up taking a fear factor from Penta El Cerro Mero. So, yeah, poor Smart Mark. But I'm not surprised. Definitely not surprised. And of course, you know, Mark Briscoe still holds the ROH Tag Team Championship, which, I don't know. I guess they're going to just let him hold on to it. I mean, I don't know what they're going to end up doing about that, but until then, he's just going to hold on to it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But Lucha Brothers and Mark Briscoe come out on top with the victory in the 0 Hour pre-show. Okay. So the main card kicked off with the singles match, Absolute Ricky Starks versus Chris Jericho. And of course, stipulation with this is the Jericho Appreciation Society was banned from ringside. Now, of course, it's obvious that wasn't going to fully be honored, as of course, you know, Sammy Guevara did try to interfere, but it was shut down by Action Andretti. And then even Chris Jericho tried to use the baseball bat. And you know what? Ricky Starks, as much damage as he did. Of course, still had the taped ribs. And, him and Jericho definitely put on quite a match. And he took a lot of punishment. I really thought the spot with the code breaker countering Ricky Starks' spear attempt, I thought that was a really cool spot. But overall, I thought it was a good match. And Jericho tried to go hit the Judas effect after hitting Ricky Starks with the baseball bat, but he blocks it, and Ricky Starks ends up hitting Chris Jericho with the Rochambeau to get the 1-2-3, and Ricky Starks defeats the Ocho Chris Jericho. Definitely a good match, but like I said, I figured there was going to be some sort of interference from the JAS, with the ref's back being turned, which of course, Aubrey always referees Jericho's matches in AEW, so I mean, there's that. But definitely a big win for Absolute Ricky Starks. I like how they're continuing to push him. So, yeah. Really good victory for Ricky Starks. Okay, next up, so we had what I thought was going to be a no-holds-barred match. This ended up being the last burial match, as this came down to a singles match between Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, and Christian Cage, where in order to win, you had to put your opponent into the casket and close the lid. Now, I definitely will say that this match told a really good story between these two. Now, of course, Jungle Boy's family was in attendance. I believe it was his mother and sister were in attendance, front row for this. And, Christian Cage and Jungle Boy just went at it. I mean, they tore each other apart. A lot of the match inside and outside the ring. And, of course, the casket was over by the entrance stage to the right side. And there was even dirt. There was even dirt surrounding the casket. There was a shovel and some dirt. And, yeah, casket. But there are a lot of different spots in this match. I mean, Jungle Boy taking a kill switch on top of the dirt. We saw the shovel being used. We even saw a really cool somersault flip off the stage from Jungle Boy to Christian Cage. That was actually really, really cool. And when it was all said and done, we had a spot where Jungle Boy hooked the snare trap onto Christian Cage with the shovel, while using the shovel. And then he eventually hit Christian with a concerto. Because remember, the last time he tried to do that, he hesitated. But this time, for sure, he ended up hitting Christian with the concerto. And that was pretty much what sealed the deal. And was able to get Christian into the casket and close the door, and the casket dropped down. Now, there was a point where Christian had Jungle Boy in the casket, but he wasn't able to close the door all the way because Jungle Boy was able to keep from the door closing. But when it was all said and done, after the concerto shot, Jungle Boy rolled Christian into the casket, closed the door, casket drops into the ground, and Jungle Boy Jack Perry defeats Christian in this last burial match / casket match. But hopefully with that happening, it puts an end to this storyline, and then Jungle Boy can start concentrating on going after singles gold. You know what I mean? I think that's been the main purpose now, ever since the whole losing the tag titles, the whole falling out with Christian Cage and Luchasaurus. But now that this is over with, which I'm thinking hopefully is over with, Jungle Boy can now focus on going after singles gold. So hopefully that'll be the plan. Next up, we had my favorite match of the card. Favorite match of the card. We had the AEW World Trios Championship match. As the champs, the Elite, made up of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, taking on the House of Black, made up of Buddy Matthews, Brody King, and Malakai Black. And I have to say, these two teams put on quite an excellent match. I mean, the spots were awesome. The strikes, the knee strikes, the V-triggers, even the knee strikes from Buddy Matthews, Malakai Black, the kicks, the black mass. Even Julia Hart took a V-trigger, which, oh man, she sold it like a champ. But like, wow. This was an incredible match. I mean, everybody got in a good bit of offense. And the thing is, the Elite were accompanied by Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, and Don Callis. And of course, Julia Hart accompanied the House of Black. But I tell you, man, this match was filled with so much greatness. Back and forth. I mean, it really could have gone either way. But I definitely agree with the call on this. But I have to say, Nick Jackson and the Young Bucks, the way this went down, Young Bucks tried to go for a Meltzer driver, and Buddy Matthews just catches Nick Jackson off the springboard with that knee and just dead on, which ended up setting up for the Dante's Inferno and picked up the victory, covering Mac Jackson after the Dante's Inferno to get the 1, 2, 3, and House of Black are your new AEW World Trios champions. And honestly, I think this was a great move. I originally wanted them to win these titles in the first place. You know what I mean? But yeah, they become the new Trios champs. Of course, the Elite are 2 times Trios champs, and then of course you had Death Triangle. But definitely glad to see the belts on House of Black. And honestly, I hope they have a solid title run. I felt like they deserve it. They were originally who I wanted to become the inaugural champs in the first place. But didn't work out that way. But still, I was happy that they won gold here at AEW Revolution 2023. But that definitely was my favorite match of the card. Hands down, my favorite match of the card. So, congratulations, Buddy Matthews, Brody King, Malakai Black, the House of Black, your new AEW World Trios champions. All right, next up, we had the AEW Women's World Championship Triple Threat match, where the champion, Jamie Hayter, defended against Ruby Soho and Saraya. Of course, Saraya was accompanied by Toni Storm, Ruby Soho had no friends, and Jamie Hayter was accompanied by Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Now, to be honest, I was kind of surprised with how this match not necessarily ended, but the post-match, I was a little surprised with that. But I felt like all 3 ladies looked really good in this match. But there was also a good amount of interference, especially between Britt Baker and Toni Storm, which really kind of did well at shifting the momentum in the match. But I have to say, it was close. It was really close, and I know probably a handful of people felt like maybe Saraya was going to get the belt. And there was even one moment where Ruby Soho came really close. Really, really close. But when it all came down to it, Jamie Hayter was able to get the pin on Ruby Soho. It was kind of like a crucifix pin. Just capitalized on an opening, got the 1, 2, 3, and Jamie Hayter is still your AEW Women's World Champion. Now, of course, afterwards, Toni Storm came in, started beating up on Jamie Hayter, and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, tried to come in and help out, but just Saraya and Toni Storm just joined in on the beatdown. Then Ruby Soho threw out Saraya and Toni Storm. What looked like she was going to stand by Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker, but she ended up turning on Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, or not so much turning, but pretty much she made her decision and decided to hit Jamie Hayter with the no future, help out in taking out Britt Baker, and sure enough, Ruby Soho stands by the side of Toni Storm and Saraya. And you know what? When you think about it, it makes sense. Like, it was shocking at first when I saw that went down, but you know what? I had to think about it. You have to remember, Britt Baker and, let's see, Britt Baker is one of the AEW originals. And when you think about it, Toni Storm, Saraya, and Ruby Soho were never AEW originals. You know what I mean? So it makes sense for Ruby Soho to side with Saraya and Toni Storm. And I believe this is now Ruby Soho's first heel run. This will be her first heel run in AEW. Which, of course, you know, she's been a heel before. She's been a heel back in WWE, so this is nothing new. But this is just her first time being a heel in AEW. So now it really makes me wonder, like, where did they go from there? Because you got three ladies now, Saraya, Toni Storm, Ruby Soho, standing side by side. I guess maybe Hikaru Shida, whenever she comes back, may join by Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. I mean, I know Britt Baker and Jamie and Shida have a lot of history, especially as rivals, but when you think about it, Shida and Britt Baker are AEW originals. I mean, they've been there since the beginning. So maybe, you know, they'll come together, form an alliance, and take on Saraya, Toni Storm, and Ruby Soho. Or at least that's what I'm thinking will probably happen. But like I said, you know, Shida right now is out with a minor injury, but word is she should be returning soon. But I could see that happening. I could probably see that happening, especially considering she's another original. And then when you think about it, Riho is another AEW original as well. So, I mean, you got choices there. You got choices. If the whole idea is them doing an AEW originals, you know, versus, you know, the outsiders or whatnot, then I mean, which I understand that Jamie Hayter wasn't really an AEW original, but still, like, she's the champ. She's the AEW Women's Champion. So I get it. And, you know, her and Britt Baker have been like this the whole entire time. So I get it. But we'll see what happens. But overall, pretty decent match. Okay, next up, we had the Texas Death Match. Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page. So this is their fourth match against each other. Of course, Mox is up on the series 2-1. Of course, Mox won the first time, Hangman the second, Mox the third. But for the fourth, Hangman Adam Page would not be denied. And of course, this match went how I thought it was going to go, with all sorts of stuff being used. I felt like Mox, bled like he usually did. I feel like Hangman, the way he bled just wasn't really that believable compared to Mox. But, I mean, it is what it is. We all knew there was going to be blood. Plain and simple as that. So, I mean, there's that. But, I mean, we saw all sorts of stuff being used. Barbed wire chairs, barbed wire wrapped chairs, a fork. Mox even used a fork. Little barbed wire, like, boards, kind of used as a table. We even saw chains being used, and even bricks. We even saw some bricks being used. I was like, dang, that was crazy. But just all sorts of different weapons used. But of course, these two kept destroying each other, just back and forth, and roughed each other up. I mean, this was going to continue to culminate from the story that they've been telling between these two for the longest time. Because you got to remember, this is their fourth match against each other. So they definitely really kept that going, even in this Texas death match. But I have to say, the ending, I felt like it was an appropriate ending. Hangman Adam Page hit the buckshot lariat and then sent Moxley over the top rope with the big thick chain wrapped around his neck and pretty much hanged him like it was a noose. And Hangman Page pulled the chain, and then eventually Jon Moxley had no choice but ended up tapping out because he was choking. But Hangman Adam Page walks away with the victory over Moxley, and technically it's tied 2-2. Now, I don't know if they're going to do a fifth match, but I assume that with Moxley losing, maybe he will finally take some time off. Maybe. Remains to be seen, but I feel like this man has well-earned, well-deserved time that he, if he really wants to take off, deserves to take as much time off as he wants. Because realistically, I don't even think he took much time off when him and Renee had their baby. I feel like he took a lot more time off. Of course, he went through rehab, the alcohol rehab. So I feel like Mox is overdue for some time off. And maybe this is how they write him off. Maybe this is how they write him off for a while, which is fine. Because like I said, I feel like he definitely deserves some time off, for sure. Okay, next up, we had the TNT Championship on the line as Samoa Joe defended the title against Wardlow. Now, to be honest with you, this was a good match. I don't feel like it was as long as it could have been, but it was still a decent match. And honestly, saw a good amount of high flying from Wardlow. And, even though we didn't see the Powerbomb Symphony, I was really surprised to see Wardlow defeat Samoa Joe with a submission. Pretty much his own submission. Well, it was more like a Taz mission, but yeah, made Samoa Joe pass out. So I was actually really surprised to see that. But like I said, I felt like the match wasn't as long as it could have been. But at the same time, I felt like Samoa Joe was meant to be the transitional champion to get the belt back on Wardlow as soon as he was cleared to return to compete. And that's exactly what they did. But now Wardlow has to turn his attention. He won the title back. He's now a 2-time TNT champion. But now he's got to turn his attention back to Powerhouse Hobbs. He's got to turn his attention to him now. So we have to remember, Powerhouse Hobbs won the Face of the Revolution ladder match to earn his opportunity. So we'll see how that goes. I believe they are going to have the match this coming Wednesday on Dynamite. So should be good. Should be really good. I feel like Powerhouse Hobbs is definitely good enough to be in the title picture, and I do feel like Powerhouse Hobbs will eventually win a championship. I don't know when, but I think it's definitely going to happen. But we got Wardlow versus Powerhouse Hobbs to look forward to this coming Wednesday. So cool deal. So two title changes so far. Next up, we had the AEW World Tag Team Championship match. Fatal 4-Way. So it was the champions, the Gunns, with, Austin and Colten, taking on the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens, Max Caster, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, and Danhausen and freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. I still don't know what they were thinking with that, just having that tag team in this match. It really should have been either Top Flight, Aussie Open, or Butcher and the Blade, but whatever. It was so freaking stupid. The match was, I guess, alright. There was a lot of, just spots with, strutting from Jeff Jarrett. We even had some strutting from Orange Cassidy. And just, shenanigans with Sanjay Dutt and Satnam Singh. It was alright. It was alright. Definitely was my least favorite match. But that's mainly just based on who was in the match. Because I really felt like this Fatal 4-Way could have had some really better tag teams in the midst. But it is what it is. It was good to see that scuffle between Sanjay and Aubrey. I thought that was pretty cool to see. But the Gunns ended up getting the last laugh. Although there were a few close calls with Jarrett and Jay Lethal looking like they were going to sneak away with it. But the Gunns ended up taking advantage, got in a blind tag, and they took out Danhausen with their double team finisher, which almost looked kind of similar to the Big Rig, but just done differently. But the Gunns end up retaining the tag titles, which I had a feeling was going to happen. But then afterwards, they had a post-match interview, called out FTR, and of course FTR came out, brawled with the Gunns, took one out with the spike pile driver and the other out with the Big Rig. So it looks like FTR are back, and I assume that they're going to get at least one last AEW Tag Team Championship run before their contracts are up in AEW. That's what I'm thinking. Unless they re-sign, but I haven't heard anything about them re-signing. And then the main event. The main event came down to the 60-minute Iron Man match for the AEW World Championship. The champion, MJF, defending against the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Of course, MJF had like a symphony orchestra, like a little mini symphony, play his entrance theme. Came down to the ring with the that Oni mask. But this was definitely an intense match. But there were a lot of head games to start off between MJF and Bryan Danielson. I mean, which was expected. But it definitely got to the point where things kept heating up as more time elapsed in this match. Now, the way this went down, Bryan Danielson did get the first fall, which he got the pin on MJF after hitting him with a Busaiku knee. And then he actually got the second. He got the second fall after MJF hit Bryan Danielson with a low blow. Because remember, the DQs do count as falls. So that technically put Bryan Danielson up 2-0. But immediately after the low blow, MJF rolled him up, got the 1, 2, 3, and then rolled him up and then pinned him again right afterwards while he was still damaged for another fall. So 2 back-to-back falls even after the DQ fall to Bryan Danielson. So score tied up just like that, 2-2. Because you got to remember, time keeps going. There's no break after a fall. So time kept going. Let's see. We know that MJF did get another fall. I believe it was after a Heat Seeker. Got another fall after hitting the Heat Seeker, if I remember correctly. And then Bryan Danielson got a fall to tie it up by getting MJF to tap out to the label lock. So it was tied up. Or excuse me, it was the Regal Stretch. I'm sorry, it was the Regal Stretch. So he was going to submit him again. And like I said, these two went at it. I mean, inside the ring, outside the ring. There was an elbow drop spot through the table. There was also a tombstone pile driver spot as well. Like, these two were, like, destroying each other. Just back and forth. Even MJF, while battling out the stands, took a fan's water and splashed it on the kid. So I thought that was pretty crazy. But when it all came down to it, Bryan Danielson had MJF locked in the label lock. As soon as time expired, the clock hit 0. MJF did start tapping out, but time elapsed. Time ran out. And this match was initially called a draw. And because of it being a draw, MJF still retains the title. But, hold the phone. Tony Schiavone gets word from Tony Khan, leaves the commentary table, comes down, and talks to the announcer and says that Tony Khan has made the decision that this match will not end on a draw and that you restart the match into sudden death and whoever gets the next fall wins. So definitely a good call. And after the match, I mean, they had both Danielson and MJF were down. MJF was getting oxygen at the time. He had a big old knot on his forehead as well. But they kept the match going, goes into sudden death, and all sorts of shenanigans happen. We saw MJF attempt to use the Dynamite Diamond ring. It backfired. Attempted to use a low blow. It backfired. And even got to the point where Bryan Danielson got him into another submission. But then MJF did something very smart. So he got to the rope. He did eventually get to the rope. And as soon as he grabbed the rope, he started tapping out while holding on the rope. Now remember, as soon as you grab the rope, you literally grab the rope, it's a rope break. The ref calls for a rope break, which, you know, Bryce Remsburg did that. But while he grabbed the rope, he started tapping out to make Bryan Danielson believe that he had tapped out and that he's the winner. But that wasn't the case. And as Bryce Remsburg was trying to explain to Danielson that no, he grabbed the rope. He grabbed the rope first. He grabbed the rope. MJF sneaks to the outside of the ring, grabs the oxygen tank that was, you know, being administered to him after the match went to a draw. He grabs the oxygen tank. And as Bryan Danielson comes over to him, hits him in the head with it, goes back in, and I believe he hit another heat seeker, but Bryan Danielson, I believe, kicked out, and then he went to put him into the salt of the earth, and then that wasn't working, so he ended up switching it to the label lock. MJF put him in the label lock, and Bryan Danielson was fading. Referee picked up his hand, dropped. Picked up his hand again, dropped. Picked up his hand a third time. He held his hand up for as long as he could. Held on as best as he could. But unfortunately, he ran out of juice and had no choice but to tap out. Bryan Danielson eventually tapped out. And MJF wins and retains the AEW World Championship with a final score of 4-3. And honestly, that was why I had a feeling that there was going to be some sort of shenanigans and he was going to end up retaining the title. And sure enough, that's what happened. But definitely a crazy finish, but a very, very good main event. Very good main event with a crazy finish. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this pay-per-view. But like I said, favorite match was the AEW Trios Championship match. That was definitely my favorite. My least favorite was the AEW Tag Team title match. That was my least favorite. But there weren't any surprises. I know a lot of folks really wanted to see some surprises, but didn't really happen. So I know some people are bummed by that, but it was still a solid pay-per-view. But we'll have to see what happens next. But definitely looking forward to what's to come for AEW. Of course, the next pay-per-view will be Double or Nothing, which will be in May. So definitely look forward to that, which they announced it'll be in Las Vegas, and I think they're going to be selling tickets starting next week or the week after next. So, you know, something to keep an eye out for. But that'll do it for this video. Don't forget to check out the link to Game Beauty, and let me know what y'all's thoughts are. What did you think of AEW Revolution 2023? Did you like the card? What was your favorite matches? What was your least favorite match? What did you think of the outcomes? Did you agree with them? Did you disagree with them? Let me know. Get in the comment section. Let me know what you think. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. For another Pro Wrestling Talk video brought to you by Blitzball Champ Gaming here on the U to the Tube, I'm your host, Blitzball Champ Jason Ingram. Hope everybody has a blessed start of the week, and I will see y'all in the next video. Take care. Peace.